And again, many of you have traveled here today to attend the meeting, and again, we appreciate your time and your continued dedication to the board. I'm also happy to announce that we do have a quorum as soon as Rose joins us for our meeting minutes and our motions. So with that, we'll call the meeting to order, and then in addition, we'll move members in our room in Albany and several in other rooms from Buffalo, New York City, and Rochester and Syracuse, and they're on our screen. As we just noticed, the meeting will also be live streamed, and I welcome all those members of the public attending virtually today. Before we begin, I'd like to mention that all non-members joining us virtually have been muted and will remain muted throughout today's meeting. Today's meeting does not provide for any public testimony, and any distracting video, will be disabled. First on our agenda is our member introduction. So today's meeting, let's quickly go around the room here, and we'll start here in the room, and then we'll move to our folks on the screen. Introduce yourself, and if you're a proxy, please give your name and who you're here as a proxy on behalf of. Start with Rose.
Yes, hello, I'm Rose Duhan. I'm the CEO of the Community Healthcare Association of New York State. I apologize for being late. Just coming from our annual conference. We had 3 days of community health centers. So very excited, very tired.
We're glad you're here. Thank you.
Laura Campion, New York State Department of Labor Counsel's Office.
I'm Chris White. I'm Deputy Commissioner for Workforce Development here at Department of Labor. I am repping Commissioner Reardon, who sent her regrets today. She cannot be here.
Hi everyone, Quinn Rebels. I'm the Assistant Secretary for Labor and Workforce, and I'm representing the Governor's Office.
I'm Harold King. I'm the President of the Council Administrator.
I'm Tanya Boniface, Deputy Commissioner for Human Resources, proxy for Commissioner Damian Harris-Madden.
Good afternoon, I'm Craig Lancet. I am Central New York Building Trades Council President, a couple other things on the card. Glad to be here.
Good afternoon, Anne Marie Landesy, founder and CEO of CanCode Communities.
Hi, Norm Fust. I'm the owner of Apple Tree HR and Safety Consultants in Western New York.
Hello, everyone. My name is Barbara Nguyen, Commissioner, New York State Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance.
Good afternoon, everyone. Patty Fusco with Fusco Personnel.
Hello, Dan McGraw, New York State Conference of Operating Engineers.
Salon Myers-Ruff from the New York State Education Department. We're the Title II partner in WIOA for adult education. I'm representing Commissioner Greg Nelson.
Hello, Amy Desjardins, Executive Director of the Workforce Development Institute.
Tony Beard, small business owner in Syracuse, New York, President and CEO and Army veteran.
Melissa Fleischute, I'm President and CEO at the New York State Restaurant Association.
Todd Tran, I'm Executive Director of the Manufacturers Association of the Southern Tier. I also serve as President of Dream It Do of Western New York.
Hey everyone, Ashley McCluskey. I'm Vice President for Special Projects and Operations at Empire State Development, and I'm here representing Commissioner Hope Knight.
Katie Geist, Executive Director of the Chautauqua Workforce Development Board.
Harry Douglas Duffy, I work Department of Labor, and I am Secretary to the Board.
And now we'll move to our virtual teams, which are, let's start with New York City.
Good afternoon, Jessica Johnson, Johnson Security, representing New York City. Thank you.
And Rochester.
Sure, Assembly Member Harry Brunson, and I'm also the chair of the Labor Committee. My apologies, I do have to leave early to attend a funeral service.
Hey everybody, Zach Arnold, Senior Director HR Operations with the University of Rochester.
Hi, Rick Plimpton. I'm CEO at Optimax and also a trustee of the Optimax Employee Ownership Trust.
And Syracuse?
Hi, Assemblyman Al Sturpey, 127th Assembly District, also Chair of Economic Development.
And Kim Townsend, President and CEO of Loretto.
Anybody in Buffalo?
Good afternoon. Buffalo is still awaiting Sean Ryan. So I will stay signed in if that's okay. And he will join whenever he arrives.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, I want to thank everybody and thank the New York State DOL team who continues to put these meetings on and put a lot of information together and a lot of effort. We truly appreciate it. Next on our agenda is our motions. And I believe we will entertain 2 motions today. The first is regarding the draft July meeting minutes, which everyone should have gotten in their email yesterday, and you should also have a hard copy in front of you today. I move to accept these minutes as they are final. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Katie? All in favor? Any opposed? Abstentions?
I just want to hold for a moment, New York City, Rochester, and Syracuse are all muted, so I don't know that you can hear the voice votes. I just want to make sure that we get an accurate count of the votes.
Okay. Sorry about that, folks. Let's make sure you're unmuted.
Do you want to have them raise hands? Would that be easier?
Then you can see it visually.
You can do it by show of hands.
Very good.
Thank you. All right, the motion is passed. The second, I would like to propose to the board to consider approving a vice chair position who would assist me in carrying out the duties of being chair should I not be able to attend the meeting. This individual is also required to be a board member, a business board member. That being said, I recommend Todd Hingham as vice chair. Todd, thank you very much for talking and doing this. All in favor of Todd as our vice chair?
Aye.
Hands on our, great. Any opposed? Abstentions? The motion is carried. Thank you, Todd. Welcome. We appreciate it. The next on our agenda is our new business. We have a mix of report outs from our committees, presentations from the Office of Children and Family Services and the Business Council of New York State, and a regional roundtable that we will add to all meetings going forward. To begin with, I'd like to discuss our recent executive committee meeting, which took place on September 23rd. In addition to exploring the possibility of adding a vice chair to the SWIB, the majority of the meeting was spent discussing the recent work of the Career and Development and Strategic Investment and Evaluation Committees. I think going forward, you will find the information that you'll be hearing today very interesting in the report outs that the teams will give today. With that said, Anne Marie will report out for the Career and Industry Committee.
Do I need to go up to the mic?
Which do you prefer?
It's up to you because there's actually no mic on the podium.
Okay.
It's up from the ceiling.
Okay, perfect. I'll do it from my seat.
Great, thank you.
All right, Anne Marie Lanissy. So thrilled to be able to give the report today. We met on September 20th and currently have 2 projects we are working on. We talked a little bit about the first project in our last meeting, which is how we can support the local area non-degree credential and certificate programs. Many of the credentials available, as we know, are posted on the eligible training, the ETPL list, but some of the locals may not fund them. And there are also credentials available that are not considered post-secondary or industry recognized. And this is a pretty heavy task, as we know. There's probably hundreds, maybe even thousands of credentials out there, and USDOL does not have an official list of what's considered acceptable. So instead, there is some guidance, and DOL is planning a technical advisory on this, and they're going to bring some of their questions back to our committee that they have developed, and the committee at our next meeting will discuss those questions. And then potentially have an advisory board assist with this project, because we do know that, of course, given that there's so many credentials in so many different industries, we may want to ask other experts to help us with this task. So there'll be more discussion and more to follow on that particular project, as we talked about last time. And then the second project, which we're also very excited about, is the development of a resource map. And this will help both employers and individuals looking for services trainings in New York State. So many opportunities and resources out there. I think we've even heard in our meetings over the last few meetings, just how many opportunities are available at different agencies. And so helping to create a resource list where businesses can help understand what they can access. So that's also a very exciting project that we are looking to get underway. One example of this is English as a second language. We know that there's a huge need for this right now, and employers don't really know how to or where to access these training programs. So helping create a resource will help with that. So we do think this is, an exciting task ahead. We may also look to have an advisory board, developed, or an advisory committee help us with this task. So we'll be looking at considering who might be a part of that. And then also potentially a communications committee, because once it's completed, we want to be able to make sure this reaches as wide an audience as possible. And so we're working on that. We hope to report more at the January meeting. And I think that's really what we discussed. Does anybody have any questions? Comments or concerns? Okay, beautiful. Thank you. Back to you, Dawn.
Great. Thank you, Anne Marie. For our final committee report, we had Katie for the Strategic Investments and Evaluation Committee, which worked hard over the last few months to get our statewide customer satisfaction survey for both businesses and job seekers. I believe Katie, along with the New York State DOL's program implementation and performance manager, Justin Heinbeck, have some data to share and the results of the surveys.
We do. So as I discussed during our July full board meeting, the committee was working with Department of Labor for a number of months on customer satisfaction surveys for both businesses and job seekers. After additional discussions between the committee and New York State Department of Labor staff, in August, the job seeker survey was updated to consist of 3 separate surveys, which included one for walk-in customers. And what that means is that's that customer that contacts the Career Center looking for assistance on their own. One for customers that had a mandatory unemployment insurance reemployment service appointment, and one for those customers that were utilizing self-service, like in our resource room. So accessing, coming in and using our resource rooms for things like their job search, accessing our computers, et cetera. So all 4 surveys were finalized in late August, at which point the New York State Department of Labor's program implementation and performance team converted them to an electronic format, and they worked to establish which specific customers would get which surveys, and they did mass emails to customers based on which one of those categories they fit into. And this is all customers from PY's program year 2023. And that time frame is from July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024. So on September 9th, a notification email was sent out to local workforce development board directors, as well as New York State Department of Labor managers, that the surveys were going to be sent out on September 10th. And that they were going to businesses who had received services during that PY23, as well as job seekers that were served during that time period regarding their most recent walk-in visit, mandatory appointment, or use of self-service resources. The deadline for completing the survey was September 24th, and we have feedback from those surveys. And as Dawn mentioned, Justin is going to go into further detail on the results and some of the trends that we found. I will say, I think this was an exciting first attempt at this. And we're still really assessing, because there was a lot of information in there. So I think there's going to be even more to talk about as we kind of delve even deeper into some of this. Okay, Justin, take it away.
Everybody, let me get the slide deck up here in a moment. While we're waiting for that, we did find, we got a lot of results right off the get-go, maybe the first or second day. We sent out a reminder email that I would encourage some more people to do it. We did find with our job seekers, a lot of the self-service job seekers, we had kind of a low response rate. I think that's because they just wanted to get in and out, use some of the resources of the career centers. Overwhelmingly, the results were positive, especially with our business customers. But as you'll see in the charts, once we get this up on the screen, for all the categories of our job seekers, we had questions like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this? 10 being the most satisfied, 1 being the least satisfied. And for most of them, it was 60 to 70% were 8 or above. We'll get this up momentarily. I think we do have copies of this we could share with everybody too. I believe that's our plan afterwards too.
Yeah, and the committee worked really hard. We kind of started with surveys that were, especially the job seeker surveys, were close to 20 or more questions, and we really whittled them down. Really tried to zero in on what was the most important information that we were looking for. And the business survey was 10 questions, and then each of the three job seeker questionnaires or surveys had 11 questions. Because we know if you get a survey with more than 10 questions, 11 questions, you're probably not gonna finish it. And we had a really high completion rate.
Yeah,
So I think our hard work paid off.
I think it did too. The logic on those surveys helps. So these are the 4 categories that Katie went over, the different job seekers here. The business, skip that because we already went over that, but maybe we'll look at the next slide. There we go. So you can see up here, for the business surveys, 97% completion rate. For the job seekers, for self-service, 100%, and the other 2 categories, 99%. We did send out to quite a few people. Our highest category of responses was the job seeker mandatory appointment. You can see the other responses up here. I'm not going to read every number to you all, but we were very excited about the completion rate. And I do think that's because of how we kind of streamlined the surveys here. So this is broken up into the different results. Again, I don't want to spend too much time reading at you, but I kind of will go over what we have right here. And I apologize, these will look better when they're emailed to you. We did try to play with the contrast on these. They're a little hard to read the way the software put them out here. But you'll see which local workforce development areas your business located in. There's a bunch over there. Anything that falls into all others, it's going to be like a one-off response right there. The top 3 were Erie County with 12.7%, New York City with 7.3%, and then Monroe and Suffolk County tied at 7%. Which county is the staff that you worked in? Top 3 was Erie, 11.3, Monroe County, 6.7, New York City was 5.9. Then here's in what industry or sector does your business primarily operate in? The top 3 for this were manufacturing at 21.2%, healthcare at 9.8%, and then construction at 9%. This one again, these are a little hard to read on the screen like this, but these are which describes best the services that you received. Over 54% were recruitment services, 13% of human resources services, and then subsidized employment services like OJTs at 8.7%. Business service I most recently received was excellent, great, good, okay, or poor. 83%, if you add them up here, felt that the service was good, great, or excellent. Pretty encouraging. It's kind of a similar questions, but utilizing the scale 1 to 10, where 1 means most satisfied or least satisfied, 10 means very satisfied. What's the overall satisfaction? And then the other chart shows which option best describes your experience as far as meets expectations, no expectations going in or exceeded expectations. So over 67% for the business category rated their overall satisfaction as an 8 or above, and nearly 75% indicated their expectations were either met or exceeded. Next up, we've got the job seeker mandatory appointments. And these are the folks that were collecting UI, coming in for an appointment. This was our highest response as far as numbers go. So what county do you reside in? Top was Nassau County at 12.6, Erie County at 6.9, and Suffolk County at 6.4. Which one's that career center is the staff that you work with from? The top 3 were Hicksville Career Center at 6.4%. At 3.9% was New York City Workforce 1 and Brooklyn Workforce 1 tied, and then hence that works at 3.8%. Please choose best customer type that represents you based on your most recent experience. A little hard to read, but you'll see that 33.9% was customer first visit in person, 33.9 was customer returning visit in person, and then 12.1 was customer first visit virtual, and 20% was customer returning visit virtual. Again, these are for the mandatory. This is about transportation. What mode did you get to use to get to the career center? 71.1% were personal vehicle, public transportation was 18.4, and walk-in was 4.6. How long did it take you to get to the career center? Yeah, a little hard to read, but I think over 50% was less than 30 minutes. But 43% was 15 to 30 minutes, and then 29.8% was less than 15 minutes. how long did they wait to receive assistance after checking in? So this is nice, 86.9% in this customer group said they waited less than 30 minutes. And that's between the 15 to 30 minute category and the less than 15 minutes category. In fact, 71.5 was less than 15 minutes. Age range, top three was 56 to 70 was at 44.5%, 41 to 55 was 31.1%, and 25 to 40 was 14.7%. So this is what services did they receive? Again, you're probably not gonna be able to read that chart from where you're sitting, but the top three are job search assistance at 56.5%, UI claim assistance, unemployment claim assistance at 51.5%, and career guidance at 35.8%. These are all the resources that were offered and or used. Top three was career information and guidance, 58.2%, internet 42.4%, and print resources coming in at 37.7%.
You were surprised about
I was surprised about that, but you were right, coming in to use the printers and faxes and stuff like that.
all the time.
Yep. And the last one for this category was again that satisfied or how likely to recommend. And what you'll see here for this category is over 65% rated their overall satisfaction at an 8 or above, and 70%, nearly 70% indicated they were either somewhat or very likely to recommend career center services, career center services, or utilize them again. Next up, we've got job seeker self-service. Sake of time, I'll kind of go a little bit quicker now that we all know. So it'll be the same question. So what county do they reside in? Top three was Kings County, 28.3, second New York, 13.7, and Suffolk County, 8.4. Which one-stop career center was the staff they worked with from? Top three was Brooklyn Workforce One at 21.7, Kings County Workforce One at 5.3, tied the Bronx Workforce One, and then the Employment Career Center in Suffolk County at 4.9. How did you hear about the Career Center? So top three of these customer base heard about it through email at 38.2%, the website was 21.8%, and a career and job fair was 18.7%. As far as mode of transportation goes, personal vehicle for this group was 38.2%, which is down from the last group. Public transportation was 37.3%, which is up, and walking was 8.9%. As far as how long it took to get to the career center, down my printout too. 20.9% had less than 15 minutes, and then 40% were 15 to 30 minutes, so not too bad there. How long did you wait for assistance after checking in? Over 70% of this group waited less than 30 minutes, and over 50% of this group waited less than 15 minutes. As far as age range, top three, 56 to 70 again is top one, coming in at 38.2%. 41 to 55 is 32%, and 25 to 40 is 20.9%. The top three, there's for nothing close there. Job seeker self-service results. For this, what was the purpose of your visit? And then check all the resources that were offered to you and or used during this visit. So the top three for purpose was obtain information on unemployment and apply for jobs. Those two categories are both tied at 34.7%. Second was apply for unemployment at 32.9%. And then third was use the resource room to job search at 25.8%. Top three for resources that were offered to you and or used. Computer, printer, fax, telephone, 58.2%. Internet, 45.8%. And then print resources, 36.4%. The questions about how satisfied they were and how likely they were to recommend again. For this group, nearly 50% rated their overall satisfaction as an 8 or above. And then just over 60% indicated that they were somewhat or very likely to recommend the Career Center services or use them again. Job seeker walk-in, what county do you reside in? Top three, King County, 16.3%, New York County, 14.9%, Bronx County, 14.1%. Which one-stop career center is the staff located that you worked with? Top three for this is going to be Bronx Workforce One, 14.7, Brooklyn Workforce One, 13.2, and New York City Workforce One at 6.3. How did this group hear about our services? Top three are email at 45.3%, 23.6% for career and job fair, which went up a little bit, and then website for this one went down a little bit for this group, 23.5%. For mode of transportation for this group, public transportation was 43.9%, personal vehicle was 27.4%, and then walking was up to 9.6% for this group. And then again, for how long it took them, 20% was less than 15 minutes. I think 30%, maybe 15 to 20. So again, not bad. How long did you wait for assistance after checking in? Over 70% of this group waited 30 minutes or less, with over 40% waiting less than 15 minutes. Age range, this one changed a little bit. Top three for this one was 41 to 55 years of age at 32.9%. 56 to 70 took second at 27.9%. And then 25 to 40 was 26.9%. This was what was the purpose of your visit and what resources were offered to you and or used during this visit. Top three for this group: job search coming in at 56.7%, job interview and job fair 25.6%, and job recruitment 21.4%. Top three resources that were offered to you and or used was career information and guidance at 48.7%, internet at 39.3%, and then print resources at 34.4%. And finally, again, how likely were they to recommend our services or use them again on the 1 through 10 scale? Over 60% of this group indicated they were likely to come back or recommend our services, and nearly 50% of them responded that their overall satisfaction was an 8 or above. So that's it. That was a lot. I know we'll share that. You'll be able to see it better when we do send it out. We are diving into some of the free-form text comments too, so we'll have more information about that as well. I think what we noticed in looking at the results, at least where we're at now, most of the negative comments that we had were about unemployment, insurance assistance, with which Career Center staff can't help too much with or aren't responsible for, I don't think. But we got a lot of positive comments, a lot of people coming in, gave shout outs to specific staff and specific career centers, and so it was good to read. So we're gonna keep digging into that information, but that's kind of like a high level look at all the responses we've had, or do have. The survey's closed, but some interesting stuff there.
Questions?
I was curious about the email. So is that saying that they learned about the Career Center because they received an email? And if that is the case, I'm curious if maybe at a future survey that wasn't done this time, I'm curious to what extent maybe referrals from other Neola partners are in that data. So I was just curious about that.
Yeah, I think, we just left that email. I would assume.
I bet the emails are from people who may have already received staff assisted service, and then we did emails afterwards to use like a virtual
the
career
first
center.
time people.
Right, because if they got an email, sometimes like with the job fair, we may have collected their emails that way.
Okay.
But I have a feeling they could have been people we sent out emails to for our virtual career center, which they can use at any time. So even if they don't use our center anymore, they could be working, they still want to use it.
Yeah, and I think one of the challenges is with a customer knowing whether or not they were referred by a WIOA partner is oftentimes they don't know that. So they may get an email from, for example, in my area, from a Chautauqua Work staff person because they were referred by another agency that's working with them. The person doesn't necessarily know that, the job seeker doesn't necessarily know that. In fact, they usually don't.
Okay, no, but I think Carrie, you answered the question.
Okay, good.
I was curious about who did they get an email from? And I didn't realize that DLO may have sent them an email if they met a career fair or something. So
Yeah,
they
and
answered
local
the
WIOA staff would too.
question.
We do mass emails, especially when we have an event or, whether it's a recruitment event, a job fair, a seminar, a workshop.
Yeah.
Another quick way that they may also receive that is, as individuals come on that we're serving that are unemployment insurance customers, we try to send out pre-appointment emails. So their first interaction may be that pre-appointment email saying, we're here to help, here's some of the things that we're gonna provide assistance to you during your appointment, and here's some things that you can prepare for before we even meet. So whether that's virtual or in person, we do those pre-appointment emails to make them aware of our self-service tools, but also what we can provide with that one-on-one assistance.
One quick question, is there anything actionable that came out of this that would kind of advise us and supporting our employees?
I don't think we're ready to answer that yet, because we literally, this just closed on the 24th. Justin got this ready, like what you just saw, and so we had one quick look at exactly what you all just saw. So I don't think we're there yet, but that's what we're hoping, is to look, are there really some trends? I wasn't surprised, but I was also pleased to see that a lot of those positive comments were directed at specific staff or, you know, a group that they did work with, whether it was a businessing, you know, the Department of Labor team put on a great job there, or it was a specific staff person that a job seeker was working with. Because what that tells me is how important those relationships are, how important it is to, you know, work with a person, develop that trust relationship, and then help them, you know, throughout their career journey towards, you know, self-sustaining employment. But so that's probably the first, that's as far as I can go with that, but that's what we're hoping, and that's what the committee and, you know, my friends on the committee, you know, pipe in. I mean, that's really what we're hoping to be able to glean some trends and also look for, and Carrie and I were already starting to talk about, you know, what are some ways that we can, you know, use this information, especially, I mean, again, not surprised that there's some negative comments about being disappointed and not being able to, at the local level, you know, have somebody fix my unemployment insurance. We don't do that at the local level. I mean, we don't have access to that system. And so it's, you know, how do we take that information and what can we do locally and make sure that we're doing that to the best of our ability, so.
Jessica in New York City has a comment too.
Jessica?
Just to follow up on the remarks regarding emails and email capture, is it possible, or rather, where do you all see potential gaps in missing opportunities with both job seekers and businesses that are not tech savvy and may not have ready access to email, internet, and know how to best use them, those tools?
I mean, from my perspective, I think it's, well, Chris White, I think it's the, this is a reminder of the breadth of customers we're serving and the breadth of services that are still needed at a time when, yes, we still have to train and think about artificial intelligence. We can't lose track of a lot of the very successful analog programs that are out there as well, and still are providing, you know, really good success stories. So I think it's kind of figuring out a sustainability plan for still having fax machines that work, you know, and still having those in-person connections that are really successful, while at the same time also, you know, helping to navigate the modern world of technology as well. I think it's like all of the above.
Question?
Yeah, first, congratulations on the positive feedback. Did I see it correctly that for the mandatory responders, when it was asked which career center are you receiving services from, that it seemed to be from like smaller areas as opposed to urban centers?
Yeah.
Out of the responses, right?
I think you do have a lot of combined, but just it's interesting to me, I would have expected it to be more, like more heavy responses from, for example, New York City, or I can't see it incredibly clearly.
So
or
the
Erie.
top three for what county they resided in this group was Nassau County at 12.6, Erie County at 6.9, and Suffolk County at 6.4. And then the top three career centers that they worked with, or the staff was Hicksville Career Center at 6.4.
Yep.
New York City Workforce One, Brooklyn Workforce One at 3.9, and then Hempstead Works at 3.8.
So those are the largest areas.
State. So, but I think you mean your all others, right? That's all the smaller offices. That's why it looks so big.
Yeah, I guess I just would have expected more from
Yeah.
New York City then. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
See, we didn't talk about this at the committee, but I was just thinking about, seeing it now, about is there a match, like, and just maybe this question for Justin, between the distance traveled and the location, because obviously that's gonna sort of matter in terms of how long someone traveled to what county they were from. Is there a match for that?
Is there a match for?
Like, are you able to track what people answered in terms of how long they had to travel to?
So the survey was, we can match those up, though, yeah, based on what, yeah, we can match the responses up. That'll take a while, we can definitely, that's some of the stuff we're gonna explore and try to identify some trends as we go on with it.
Or we can pull county and then distance, because right, some might be larger areas, geographic areas.
Yeah.
Anything else? Thank you, Katie and Justin. That was, it's a lot of information, but we appreciate it, and it's good for everybody to get a chance to look at it. Both committees are doing a lot of great work, and as we move forward, I think all of us are, a lot of anticipation is what we'll see coming out of this in our January meeting. So be on the lookout for it, because I think that's what will help move our board forward, is the committee work. Next, we move on to Nora Yates, Deputy Commissioner of the Division of Child Care Services at OCFS, who will discuss federal and state funding being dedicated to child care.
Hi. Good to see friends. Okay, great. And so can you hear me? Okay, is Mike's in the, okay, great. Okay, so, nothing good without a PowerPoint, so can we bring up our PowerPoint? Yep, so go ahead. Oh, it's all one, fantastic, okay. Good afternoon, sorry for that. Nice to meet many of you. My name is Nora Yates, Deputy Commissioner, Division of Child Care Services at New York State Office of Children and Family Services. We oversee and regulate the 17,000 child care programs in New York. Bet you didn't know there were 17,000. And we also oversee the Child Care Assistance Program, which is also known as subsidy. And that is a $1.8 billion program now that affords low to middle income families with free or low cost childcare. There are two big pieces and then everything else that people give us. But we're really excited to be here because, as you know, 70% of working families use some sort of childcare in this state. So I wanted to just kind of provide an update to where the investments have recently been, provide an update on some of the strategic initiatives that are underway. As you know, this governor, we're very fortunate for her support. She's very committed to childcare, having the first mom governor, and also had to make some serious choices in her life about her career and childcare availability. So we're very fortunate that everybody really loves childcare. So just kind of perspective on who we are. The Child Care Assistance Program does serve about 120,000 families, children specifically. And so we are seeing increases in child care assistance. That's our subsidy program. Grateful that Amy is here from WDI. We can also talk about WDI, which is also a fantastic program for additional families. If you look at the kind of scope of who we serve, the total population, obviously it's 19 million, there's about 4 million children. We have licensed registered about 780,000 slots. So if there are 4 million children and we have 78,000 slots, there's a big gap. So I think we get a lot of questions about, like, well, tell me where we need childcare. Everywhere we need childcare. We specifically need infant toddler care everywhere, but there is a big gap. This is a big gap to fill, and we can talk a little bit. We have a beautiful map, DOL, grateful to partner with you guys on a beautiful website as well. If you want to really zero down into your area or your region on what is needed, but there is a large gap in childcare right now. like I said, we have about 17,000 licensed registered programs in the state. This does include New York City daycare centers, which interestingly enough, are actually regulated by New York City. So there's 2,000 centers in the city that are regulated by the city, but we work very closely. And then we have all the different types of programs here. We have 4 different modalities of programs. Child daycare centers, which you're very familiar with. There's about 4,000 of those. Family daycare homes, which are our very smallest programs. Those only serve about 8 kids. Group family, which are the larger home-based programs. Are our largest number of programs. That's not where the kids are, right? Those are only 16 kids, but we have 7,000 of those programs in the state. So those are absolutely everywhere. And then our school age programs are after school programs, oftentimes located in school buildings or in the community where my child currently right now, that many of you are familiar with. So, like I said, we're very grateful that we've seen this tremendous investment in childcare, and I just wanted to give you some lovely bar charts to really represent what this investment means for families. In less than 2 years, the income eligibility has increased almost 70% for the childcare assistance program. So maybe you've heard about this, you know, in the past, and oh, those aren't available, or oh, you know, my employees wouldn't be eligible for this benefit. But it went from, in 2022, a family of 4 earning $55,000 would be eligible, to today, it's $99,000 for a family of 4. It actually just increased a couple months ago to now $109,000. So a family of 4 making $109,000 and working or engaged in activity would be eligible for childcare assistance. So it's a big kind of shift, right? Normally we would tag it with other services that families might be receiving or other supports, but I think there's a wider universe now for families, for a family of 4 making $109,000. And that's gonna actually go up every year with state median income. So we're really grateful for those changes in that investment. So that was a $1.8 billion investment. Just last year, we received an increase of $753 million, which was a huge increase and also supports all this expansion, right? It's one thing to expand your program and kind of cross your fingers that the money will be there, right? But to support all of this expansion, there was this tremendous investment over recent years. And so the money is there. We are state supervised, locally administered. No. So our local social service districts administer the child care assistance program for us. And so all districts have the resources, have the money to open cases for families. And so also you may have heard, if you had an employee go to their district office and the district said, we're not doing that right now, or we have a wait list right now because there's no money. That did in fact happen in the past. That is not the case today. They all have ample resources. New York City is opening cases, which for a long time they did not, for various reasons. So we have seen a 35% increase in serving families and children. Great. So please keep it coming. We also, in our most recent executive budget, enacted budget, there was a workforce retention grant program. This was the 3rd of our pandemic investment. We got $2.3 billion in pandemic dollars that went to both expanding childcare assistance, but also stabilizing the industry, right? A lot of childcare programs closed and we needed to stabilize and get them reopened. But once they're opened, and we did in fact stabilize that industry, they couldn't hire anyone, just like many other human service industries, they couldn't find employees. And primarily that was due to the low wages, right? We saw wages increase in many other industries, which is great, support that. But then that leads to significant competition for folks working in childcare settings who oftentimes making minimum wage. So the workforce retention grant program and the other programs that the governor included in her recent budgets were specifically to offer bonuses or increased wages at childcare programs for employees. So we did see that happen. We did just also do a survey. I didn't include our pretty bar charts, but I should have done that. That we did actually see wages increase, oftentimes by $2 per staff person. So that's good news. They also got $3,000 bonuses for over the course of 1 year, and then a $2,000 bonus. Those bonuses went out to 80,000 staff. So I think we retained the staff that we had, fantastic. We still have a workforce crisis. We still have many, many programs with rooms closed or not enrolling to their full capacity because they can't find the staff. Love to brainstorm with all of you how to address that. These are the other initiatives that we included in our budget. Staff family childcare networks support our home-based programs, which are usually very, they have very limited administrative skills. And so we need some sort of business support for our home-based programs. Because they just want to focus on the kiddos and not kind of do their taxes or do the other things that are needed. And then really driving quality. Those are our other quality initiatives that were in the budget. So I think one of the questions I got was kind of where's the need, right? So this statewide workforce investment board, but really digging in, where's the need? How do we determine need in the childcare system? So in 2022 was the first time that we were able to do some analysis and look at the state in terms of need for the gaps in childcare. Like I said, there is a large gap. 60% of the state is considered a childcare desert. So just after we put that aside, if you really want to dig down, what we did is look at the definition of childcare desert means there's more than 3 kids for every 1 available childcare slot. So, and oftentimes it's 5 kids, it's 7 kids or more. So parts of the state that we were able to generate a map, we partnered with our colleagues at the Council on Children and Families. And this lovely map shows the darkest red areas, the southern tier, North Country, and central New York areas, Mohawk Valley, were the most arid of the childcare desert areas. But you'll notice everybody has something. Even New York City, which has our largest number of providers, the Bronx is not a desert for providers, but it does really limit our infant toddler care. There's always a gap on infant toddler care. So we were able to target an investment of grants to open programs, and the little dots are the awardees where they came from. So it worked that we were able to open programs in the parts of the state that are the darkest color. So we awarded 286 grants, and we expanded capacity by 7,000 slots or seats in those parts of the state where we needed to see it. Hopefully many of you maybe heard about these programs. We got to open a center in the North Country, which was like only the second North Country center that got to open in recent years. Everybody was very excited. Ticonderoga School District and everything. So we're very excited about the investment. But I will say, when we ran the data now recently, still seeing large gaps. This made a drop in the bucket in, central New York and the North Country on the amount of need that's there. So want to put that in perspective. Very excited about the grants, but there's always a need. The other side of not just operating expenses, but there's physically space concerns. And the governor did include 2 years ago, $50 million for capital awards. That we worked with our partners at the Dormitory Authority on and got that out last year, and the awardees were just announced. Yes, we're gonna have a second North Country Center. Now we're getting crazy. They're very excited. And so we were able to make, out of $50 million, we were able to make 45 or 47 programs. And just to show you how far $50 million goes, right? So these are $1 million to $2 million grants that are for shovel-ready projects. We're very excited that we awarded all of them. They all have to come online within about 3 years to be licensed programs, high-quality programs, and they're targeted at those parts of the state that are the highest gap. Link is here if you want to go check who they are. Then it comes to you guys. So the other part of really addressing the shortage and the gap here is how we can work with businesses to support their employees' needs, childcare needs. And so the investment in previous years was for a business navigator program. Those of you from New York City may have seen the mayor's office put out a version of this where if businesses were interested in supporting their employees' childcare needs, how do they do it? It's so complicated. How do I do it? And so New York City did put out a kind of navigation guidebook And this was modeled, our statewide guidebook will be modeled after that New York City one. So we are working with our friends at the Early Care and Learning Council, which is a statewide association, to create this book that has specifics per region. So if businesses need to connect with somebody in the region about how they want to support their employees' needs, they'll have regional resources, regional connections for all 10 REDC regions. And then we'll do a series of webinars, series of kickoff events, and then have some businesses stand up and talk about how they did it. Did they help underwrite the cost of childcare? That's great. Did they physically invest in building a childcare, right? We do know several businesses invested in childcare. It's not the business community. I think the way that the governor has been approaching it is not that it's exclusively the business community's responsibility to really start to invest in childcare, but it makes good business sense, right? To retain those good employees, given that 70% of your employees have at some point in their life childcare concerns. And so can it be part of that puzzle? And so this is another part of that puzzle.
Laura, how do we get information about that webinar?
I can give you that QR code, that fancy QR code right on the bottom, but we can.
If you can send it to us, we'll get it out to everybody.
Absolutely, that'd be great. That'd be great. So there's 2 coming up, but then there's gonna be a series continue going on. Do you want me to do questions at the end or questions throughout?
Somebody have a question?
Yeah.
First of all, it's great that we're taking care of the underserved populations in there. But you talk about the gap, and one of the things that you're talking about is helping even at a higher level. So I'm going to suggest that probably you're having a problem with staffing more than anything else. So I'd like to be interested in hearing how that's going to develop, especially with the situation in the Central New York area where the Micron situation that's coming on to be, that's going to be a very, very, you said there's 2 more
centers.
Centers.
Yeah.
You're going to need a lot.
Sure.
To deal with. So I'm just interested in how you would.
Sure. Great challenge to have is having Micron come. We're very excited. So the Commissioner Reardon and Commissioner Damian Harris-Madden from my agency are co-chairing the Child Care Availability Task Force, which is the governor's task force, along with many other partners. And so I think Micron did come and present to kind of look at how they're approaching moving to the area and investing in the workforce. They did do some initial investment. I think they're looking at partnering at a local level with a new center for 100 kids, but they are projected to have about 4,000 need, right? And so yes, there is available capacity in the central New York region, not a lot, but there is some. But unless we get the workforce into those programs, they're not going to open those seats, right? We need to have a high quality, well-trained, genuinely fantastic resource, because these are our kids, right? These aren't just bodies. So we're doing continued investment and really working with Micron and that local community. There's a local kind of community coalition to do those workforce pipeline projects, right? So kids can get credit for early childhood credentials in high school. They can go through BOCES programs. There's several BOCES programs. There's also associate's degrees or early childhood degrees at local community colleges. Onondaga Community College has a great program. So those pipeline projects and those apprenticeships, there's a couple apprenticeship pilots, there's one in Poughkeepsie, are really important. But at the end of the day, we need to make sure those folks are higher paid when they get out, right? Because I think we want to train them and give them a great job when they're done to get them into the program. So how can we wrap around supports once they get into the program? That's really what we're working on now, is how do we get the program's investment so that they can pay those folks better. They can give them health insurance, or they can get them connected to the exchange. That's really what we're working on now, because luckily we've been so fortunate to invest all these resources, and we're really working on the training piece. But if we don't have the resources for the business, right, at the end of the day, then they're not going to hire, and they're not going to be able to hire anyone at $15 an hour.
So you're looking at the idea that there is more money, but you've got to implement it into the system to make it work.
Correct. So childcare assistance, which is a wonderful parent benefit, we continue to raise the rates that go to programs for those parent benefits. And so with the working with on the other side with the program to really invest those dollars back in, right? And make sure that we're doing those workforce pipeline pieces, we're doing as many professional development opportunities. One of the things we've talked about is the CDA credential. I know you're all very familiar with the OPWDD initiative around their direct service credential, and really partnered with SUNY on getting that out, and recruiting direct service folks who are interested in that credential. So we were working with SUNY and talking about, can we do a similar credential for the Child Development Associate credential? You know, pay for folks to go to school and then have them connected to programs and really connect to that pipeline. So that's the other piece that we're working on for that as well. It's been easy. Yeah.
Very informative, thank you. I'm just curious, when you speak to the CDA and you speak to some of the community colleges, OCs that are involved in this, are there efforts within those facilities, childcare within those facilities, and have those students learning while, you know, actually helping take care of the children there, and would that be an opportunity maybe to use some of that capacity that would have more seats?
I know the community colleges, that's what they have. They have really high quality. SUNY has been investing in opening childcare programs at SUNY and specifically linked to their early childhood programs so that those kids get their internship hours and that kind of thing. And then as part of their credentialing or part of their higher education. So it absolutely, we want more of that. Because we need more of those programs so we can link those students to those programs. So, and that's why we have, I'll just say this repeatedly, we have an infrastructure of 35, what are called CCR&Rs. That's a terrible name, but locally, all you need to know is we have an infrastructure of 35 local CDOs who coordinate the childcare programs at their local level. So if you haven't ever connected with them, they're a fantastic resource. And so to the extent that they work at the local level with their either BOCES or community college, and then connect those students to daycare centers or even home-based programs as internship hours or whatever that pipeline is. They're a tremendous resource as well. Do we keep going or is that good? I have a few more if you just want to keep going. Keep going. Just to reiterate the Child Care Assistance Program, that's CCAP, lovingly called CCAP. We've seen tremendous increases. Red is New York City, rest of state is blue. So we've seen tremendous increases in recovery in our New York City numbers, which are usually about half of our families, a little bit over half. And so if you want to distribute these QR codes, we actually just launched an online application. So if any of your employees might be eligible, or you think some of your employees might be eligible, easy eligibility questionnaire online, they can scan it. And then at the end, if they are eligible or it looks like they're eligible, they can fill out an online application right there. So easy. Finally, it is just a few steps, so we tried to make it as easy as possible. The online application is available for everybody except New York City and Schenectady County. Why? Because Schenectady County created their own online application because they were finding that they needed to enter into the 2000s, and we hadn't been there yet. So we're there now. And so workforce, great question. Right, slides. So how can we help support the workforce? These are just some of the pieces. We are partnering with DOL to do a what's it called? What is the customized job bank? Thank you. Job bank, thank you. That was fantastic because that way programs can post their openings and it's a better way to marriage. We are working specifically on a workforce development website and specifically to school-age childcare programs. School-age childcare programs experience a ton of turnover. They usually hire the college kids or they hire the young people. And so we really they go through this constant turnover every August. I really want to help stabilize those because then those programs are open for back to school. And then a toolkit for providers. So also providers have been in this constant cycle of interviewing and hiring and then losing folks. So we really want to work on onboarding and making sure that the process is better for providers on the employer side so that this employees stay and not have this constant turnover. Like I said, job bank, we refer to the career centers and working closely with your career centers. We had a DOL webinar for childcare providers on how do you recruit, what is a good process for recruiting, how can you leverage the career centers. And then a lot of the DOL resources, we've been pushing out to our providers where they have vacancies. Because employees are out there, they're hiring, right? But we're just seeing this competition. We also did an ad campaign to what we heard from our providers was that we really need to raise the esteem of the industry, right? We really want to see that this is a phenomenal opportunity to grow your career. So we did an ad campaign across all media channels with this cute baby who was very popular on Facebook, with Dimple, the whole thing. And so we had a lot of impressions, we got a lot of clicks through. We did it on buses, we did Little Humans Big Roll, so join the childcare field today on all the resources and across the state. And that did help. We obviously can't pinpoint that like this employee got this job, but it was a good kind of seeing it as an opportunity. I think that's the feedback that we got. It was in Spanish as well as English. And so we're able to do it all across all platforms. We have 35% of our childcare providers are Spanish speaking, and most of them are Spanish speaking only. So we have to make sure, and we are very wonderful. We're very fortunate to have that. So a really great opportunity for Spanish speakers in New York. And then I'll just put out there, we have lots of data out there. We love data like DOL loves data. So we put lots of data out there. And then we are currently obsessed with space in my house. I have 2 14-year-olds and a 7-year-old. 7-year-old's more fun. 14 scary. And we're obsessed with space. And so I always talk about space in terms of this vibrant community because childcare is kind of ever evolving. And if you haven't seen the Webb telescope pictures yet, please go see the Webb telescope. It's the bajillion-dollar telescope that was recently launched, and there's all these cool shots that are coming out. So these are this vibrant community of stars, and that's why I always use for my childcare space. So what questions? Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, I just, Amy Desjardins, Workforce Development Institute. I just wanted to piggyback on what Nora was saying. You know, her program is for county subsidies, and then WDI was awarded a small scholarship program for folks who don't qualify, who are over income for county subsidies. We go up to 400%. So those numbers that she showed were pretty large for a family of 4. Ours are a little bit more than that because, you know, the high cost of childcare is still very expensive for everybody. And it's for folks who are ineligible as well for county subsidies. So that would be eligible for recent migrants as well. So I will share our flyer if you could share that out as well. So thank you.
I have I want to say thank you. I'm really struck by your presentation. I knew we had issues. I didn't really understand the depth of how many children might not have services. So I first and foremost really appreciate your presentation. I was very excited to hear about the investment that we've seen in, you know, Governor Hochul the last few years. Can you talk at all about federal trends? Because I'm curious if we're seeing, like, are we making progress at the federal level? Are states getting supported in any way federally? I'm just curious, like, how the federal dimension could come into it.
So we are, we have a federal grant and then our state funding, but it's all smushed together into one fund. So all of our requirements, all of the federal requirements apply to all the state funding as well. So the state receives the Child Care and Development Fund block grant through the federal government, and so all of the requirements apply to all of our state. Those are our licensing requirements, health and safety, all of those. So we have seen stable investment over recent years. The Build Back Better bill, which was proposed a couple of years ago, really had proposed a significant expansion because it included universal pre-K money and expansion in childcare. The goal of that bill was to cap all parents' childcare costs at 7% of their income, which then it would really go up to about 500% the federal poverty level. So that's a huge gap between where we are and where that 7% cap would fit in. So we've just seen stable, which we're grateful for, that bill impact. And we're grateful for last year in the omnibus continuing resolution, right? They passed a series of continuing resolution budgets. There was like $80 million more, which we did then reinvest into some of the expansions here in New York. So grateful for the consistent investment from our block grant, but also a lot more is needed. And that's, we've been very clear about that too, that we can't do this alone. We can't fill that gap as a state by ourselves. Thank you.
Can I just ask, just of the folks around the table, are there innovative models that are maybe have been around for a while or that are new today that you are either partnered with or aware of in your industry or your community that might be something to at least investigate replicating in other parts of the state? Or things that you're like, my kids did this and it totally worked, or like your employees did it. I'm just, I think this is Nora's an amazing partner of ours at DOL, but it's something that we're talking about all the time. It's part of every conversation.
I think one thing that's come up is that some of our call centers, they're very small, and so they couldn't operate on their own a site, but they've talked about, could they somehow have come together on a joint project to have, a childcare center? I don't know if there's some way to help people think about that.
I know one thing we've tried to do, and we've had some success, but I don't think, it's not anywhere near where we'd like it to be, is we've tried to use like some of our youth focused programs. So our summer youth program, our year-round Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act youth program, to develop work sites for our paid work experience program with childcare providers. So that we're kind of building that entry level pipeline by using those programs to encourage young people to at least explore a job in childcare, and it helps the childcare providers because now it's, for a period of time, they're not paying the wages, the program is. And we've had some successes there. I think locally what we've been really trying to do is we've done a really nice job in healthcare. I'm just gonna use that as an example of identifying and showing a clear career ladder. And I think childcare is a lot tougher to show a career ladder. And so we're just really trying to wrap our heads around how do we do that better and what does it even really look like? We have the same problem in tech. Tech is, it's so all over the place. I think childcare should be easier, but I don't think we're there yet. So I think we could use help with that, is how to really identify clear career ladders, what certifications are needed, who is providing those, how can we help young people or current employees get those next level credentials to be able to work up that ladder.
Yeah, we would love to work on that. And everything in childcare is complicated. There's nothing easy.
I know.
I think as I listen to you talk, I think there's more people in the boards than I'm on, that are more going to be interested in the things that you're asking is, how do we do this? It's we're aware of the issue now, probably more than ever. There's now going to be more reaching out to you and trying to figure out, okay, well now what do we do? So I think that's going to be the question more so than giving an answer. You're going to get some question on how do we go about doing this?
And I mean, I'm sure Nora's is every place when I talk to anyone in every other state, it is the same exact thing. It is not just.
That's why Anne Marie's question is so important. You don't really hear it talked about at the federal level. And, this is the future of our entire country. We need to be talking about it at the federal level. So I'm so glad you brought that up.
I think when we get around a room like this with our HR people in the manufacturing setting, that they're doing workarounds. They're trying to do flexible shifts. They're trying to do split shifts. They're trying to make it so that they don't need childcare, or that they can accommodate a schedule for grandma to watch the kids. It's all very catch can. I've also heard a lot of anecdotes of just people. I think this group's nightmare of people withdrawing from the workforce, or going part-time, or doing something less than their skill level from home or in a different situation to do that.
Right, which disproportionately affects women in the workforce.
Sure.
Right, so oftentimes you'll see that.
I've got a great anecdote of, a plant manager that is, working from home to take care of his 4-year-old, but that's really the exception. That's not the case. Your description is way more accurate.
Yeah, I mean, it affects all families, right? It absolutely affects all families.
And you're well aware that, especially in healthcare, it's not always 9 to 5, so.
Yeah,
neither is manufacturing.
and that is truly that I didn't hear it mentioned, but that is one of the biggest issues, is that off-hour childcare.
Yeah.
It's great, the 7:30 to 5 or whatever the hours are, but if you are on the second shift, and you're a single mom, that'll.
Yeah, there's even the transportation issues though too. So like in our area, so we're a big rural county, and we hear stories constantly about, well, I don't have a car, my job I can get to easily from my house, but my childcare provider is way over here. So I've got to find a way to get my kids successfully to childcare, then over to my job, and hope that there's no snafu along the way.
And there's always a snack.
Always. Never fun. I would just say that kind of emerging models, Rose, to your point, we know we're working with Erie County Medical Center and some of the campus kind of space that they have, because they're kind of constantly redoing, and they're interested in partnering with a childcare provider to put one there, and it would have kind of additional hours. I will say about the non-traditional hours, it's absolutely a shortage, but parents don't want their kids in centers overnight.
No.
So this is really about our home-based programs. They want them in bed, right? And they want them at home. And the other pieces are, I'll say, our legally exempt or our family friend neighbor care program. So for grandma, if you wanted to have grandma watch the kid overnight and you're eligible for childcare assistance, grandma could get paid for that.
Wow.
So we have a whole legally exempt program where it supports families' choices. All these choices happen and it's all complicated, right? So you may have a family that works a morning shift, but the other person works the evening shift, and so you need somebody in that middle gap, right? And so there is a legally exempt, grandma doesn't have to be licensed because it's only 1 or 2 kids, but they can apply for childcare assistance, and they can, that's really where those opt hours, those non-traditional hours, how can we better support grandma, auntie, neighbor, who is a great option for that overnight, because the kid can stay in the house or the kid can go next door. And so that's the other side of how do we support those caregivers? Is that a career ladder? Maybe auntie never thought about being a childcare provider, but maybe they do want to get licensed, right? So we're really trying to support as many models that families are.
How do we help businesses get that information
Yeah.
to their employees? Because a lot of times employees don't want to tell their supervisor or their business, who they're working for. And so it's how do you streamline getting the information so that then they can make the best decision for them, but also access all the resources.
Right, and I would say at hiring, right? As soon as you hire an employee, they're struggling with childcare. Mostly if they have children, they're struggling with childcare. They're trying to redo their schedule, right? So at hiring, how do we have businesses and workplaces know that that's just another thing that family is right, is we're excited about our new job, what time do I get out? I gotta go to job.
And the businesses have to be understanding that things change. I know in my other life, I was a teacher, and at the beginning, you had certain days off and it was where it was. But then as you got older, there was more days off. It seemed like there's more time off. And I think the businesses have to understand that that's taking place. My business takes that in consideration from the beginning, but it doesn't mean that everyone, and I, as I said, I was a teacher in my past life. But what if they don't understand that? Then you've got to realize that as those times come on, when they get those 2-week breaks and things of that nature, that's going to be an issue they got to deal with. And that may be what made them aware more of what's going on, because things have changed.
New York City, please.
Yes, thank you so much. This is great information. You shared some of the preferences that parents might have when they're looking for childcare for their children. I don't know if you said this and I missed it. Are there any resources available to employers if employers have capacity to either create childcare offerings at a central location that's close to a working facility for a parent, or to work with other employers to provide something as opposed to being in-house care or having the family member? Like what would be available to me as an employer if I wanted to go beyond getting my employees to scan the QR code and go through the assistance program? Like what resources are available to help employers that want to come up with creative ideas for childcare offerings?
So that will be that business navigator toolkit that will be out shortly, and we will absolutely distribute it to all of you. Since you're in New York City, there's a wonderful New York City one, which you can give you, because the New York City landscape is always more complicated. So that toolkit does say, here's all the ways that you might be able to do it, all the options that you just mentioned, right? Do you physically wanna have a center? Do you wanna partner with somebody offsite? Do you wanna support, like with money, your staff's childcare needs? Do we wanna do some sort of partnership? So there's lots of different models for that, in addition to the actual state's childcare assistance program, which you can refer your families to as well. So the toolkit we will distribute, but I'll also make sure you have the New York City link, so that you can, the rest of you can see what's to come. And for New York City, the kind of nuanced details there, because there's universal pre-K, and then there's kind of year-round pre-K in some places, so it's different in different programs. But that's absolutely the goal of that Navigator program. I'll also reiterate the 35 local CBOs that are our childcare resource agencies. They are all participating in this resource kit. So they will be your great contact for what the lay of the land is locally. What are some models locally that people have done? So, you know, our R&R in Buffalo is working with Erie County and working on that kind of campus level investment. They work with a lot of the SUNYs and what's it called, community colleges. So they have that kind of, what are the models locally? Like I said, in Poughkeepsie, there is a model that actually is working on an apprenticeship program that DOL is supporting, that is a daycare center that has employees that are part of the apprenticeship program, but also training them to be home-based programs, home-based providers. So then they leave after they graduate or however long, and then they actually can open businesses and they become business owners, which is great. Now we're creating slots and we're training folks, getting credentials. That's great.
Yeah, I just wanted to say on back to the career path, because I think that's, having the workforce is really important. I don't know if you're already working with the state education department, because there are so many paraprofessional and other positions within education that there's a shortage of, and so there could be a direct pipeline for childcare for those other professions.
We are. You guys are being great partners.
Okay.
The Office of Early Learning is working primarily with pre-K, and there's a real kind of fluidity between the pre-K system and childcare system, and so we're working really closely on what those credentials are needed, or how can we make sure our folks in childcare don't get taken to go to pre-K once they get those credentials. But really see it as a spectrum, right? That you can have your master's and work with childcare, you have your master's and go get certified. And so absolutely, the SED is being a great partner. Actually, we have a collaboration council that's OCFS and SED that is meeting quarterly on all those issues. So, and SED took the lead and it's been a great partner.
We have one last question before we move on.
Is there a program for employees who are pre-tax dollar?
Ooh, for childcare, you're going to quickly get outside of my knowledge. Yes, there's a federal program that not a lot of, so there's the kind of ones that employers author, right? But there is a tax program that's at a federal level and a state level that not a lot of folks take advantage of because of the different hurdles. And so we can distribute some of that tax information as well.
Thank you. Great. Thanks, Nora. A lot of good information.
Sure.
So be on the lookout for the information to come out when we send out our meeting minutes and things like that for the meeting. Next, we'll move to Paul Zuber, Executive Vice President of the Business Council of New York State, for a presentation on an initiative the Business Council has been working on for the last few years in the manufacturing space. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. For those of you that aren't familiar with the Business Council, we are the largest state business association in New York State. We represent about a little over 3,200 members. Our membership ranges from small businesses to minority-owned businesses to mid-sized businesses to Fortune 500 companies, from Buffalo to New York City to Long Island. So I think that gives us a very diverse look at the economy. It also gives us a very diverse look at what our members are asking for. And it gives us a very diverse look at what the employment needs are for our members. Now, a little secret for everybody, I was not supposed to be here. Crystal Griffith, who worked for me, who is our workforce development specialist, was supposed to be providing remarks today. She is on a bus going to the middle of nowhere. I'll explain that later. But when I asked Crystal, I was like, Crystal, what am I supposed to talk about? Just like, talk about our workforce development initiatives. And then when I started going through them, I realized we had about 6 or 7 pages of workforce development things that we're doing. So I think everybody in this room, if you do meet Crystal, to tell her she should thank you, because obviously she's gonna get a raise after I've seen what she's been doing. I mean, I kind of know the boss, but at the same time, this was kind of, shocking to me, all the different things that we're doing. So as I said, we represent 3,200 members throughout New York State. And, I think our job really is several things. It's to educate our members. It's to educate the public. It's also to advocate for our members before state agencies, before the legislature, before the governor. So, some of the things that we've been looking at have a lot to do with our conversations with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And I think one of the things that the U.S. Chamber of Commerce has pointed out to me, their economists are very concerned about what they see as a workforce shortage that's occurring throughout the United States. According to the U.S. Chamber, nationwide, their numbers show about 8.2 million open jobs. We have a number of open jobs in New York State. So one of the things that we've kind of been looking at is how do we bring people into the workforce? Obviously, we're not going to solve the birth rate issue. I mean, we know that baby boomers are aging out. Gen X, Z, Y, whatever it is now, are not keeping up with the baby boomers. But what parts of particularly the New York State population can we get back into the workforce? So legislatively, let me start with some of the legislative things that we've been doing. One of the things that we worked on with the legislature and is about to become into law on November 16th is this clean slate legislation. Now, clean slate would seal somebody who has a felony or a misdemeanor conviction. And the purpose behind it is allow that person, if they have not gotten in trouble for a certain amount of time, 3 years for misdemeanors, 7 years for a felony, to give those people an opportunity to truly get a job. When you look at the statistics that are out there, nationwide, formerly incarcerated represent their unemployment rate hovers around 30%. It's amazing when you think that 1 in 3 Americans have a criminal conviction record. So clean slate was something that we worked on very aggressively with the legislature. Unfortunately, again, we have a very diverse membership, a very large membership. Many of our members were actually involved in what they call the Second Chance Coalition. The Second Chance Coalition was a voluntary program that allowed that businesses would actively recruit formerly incarcerated to come and work for them. The numbers off of that and the success of that program was astounding. And it also, shed light on how this really isn't a political time bomb that many of us thought it would be. I mean, on one hand, I had JP Morgan pushing and doing Second Chance and being a proud supporter of Clean Slate. On the other hand, I had Koch Industries, which is probably one of the most conservative organizations in the United States, is probably the leading company throughout the United States on second chance hiring. So with the Clean Slate bill, we've been working actively in getting a different segment of the population into the workforce. Going forward, what the Business Council has been doing is working with the legislature, working with the governor's office to go around throughout the state and educate businesses, local leaders, community groups about Clean Slate. On October 25th, we'll be in New York City, along with the sponsors, Senator Zelma Myrie, as well as Assemblywoman Catalina Cruz, to again talk about Clean Slate and talk about what it means and helpfully educate those who potentially are going to participate in the program. We've also been working on the benefits cliff. I think that's another important issue that we found and our members talk about. I always say that, people know how to add. And when you're out there and you realize that taking a job is actually going to be more costly to you than losing the benefits that you're getting right now, it makes no sense for you to get the job. A lot of that has to do with childcare costs. And, I can talk a little bit about where we are on that issue. But one of the things that we've also been working with the legislature on is a bill that would allow us to study the benefits cliff and understand when people reach that benefits cliff, and also working on legislation that would basically extend a 6-month income disregard for folks who are receiving certain subsidies. Additionally, again, trying to get more and more people into the workforce. Recently, we've been working with the Black and Latino Caucus on a bill that is called the Work Opportunity Tax Credit. And many of you may or may not be aware, there is a federal program that provides a tax credit to employers who hire from certain communities that have historically been left out of the economy. So for example, if you were to hire someone who's formerly incarcerated, someone who's receiving TANF, someone who's receiving SNAP benefits, that business would get a tax credit for hiring those individuals. The purpose really behind it is it becomes difficult for companies to mine those populations, right? Generally, when an employer has a job opening, they post a job opening, right? They don't necessarily take the time to say, hey, you know, we want to help people who are on SNAP. We want to help the most needy. We want to help the people on TANF. So the Workforce Opportunity Credit gives an incentive for our members to actively seek that population and actively hire that population. Another issue that we've been working with the legislature on is immigration. I don't know if you know that it's a big issue. You might have seen it on TV. I mean, I think I see it with every Mark Molinaro commercial, but that's something totally entirely different. You know, to Heather Mulligan, our CEO's credit, she looked at some of the issues that are surrounding the migrant community and people coming in as an opportunity to get more people into the workforce and an opportunity to figure out how to get those people into the workforce. You know, obviously there are federal constraints as to who our employers can hire based on their legal status. But, you know, working proactively with the Department of Labor has become something that the Business Council has actively pursued. We've also are a charter member along with the AFL-CIO of the Ellis Island Initiative. And what we do with the Ellis Island Initiative is we do go throughout the state. We've had symposiums in Albany, Rochester, Syracuse, and throughout New York. We're going to continue. And what we do is we go in and we try to educate the public, local leaders, community leaders about immigration, about the resources that exist for that migrant population, about how do we get that migrant population jobs and employment. So it's been a very effective tool that's allowed us to really reach out to a community that needs jobs, and then our employers are looking for more of a workforce. Childcare has been another big issue for us. I think it's probably one of the leading issues that our business members talk about. Childcare. How do we get more people into the workforce by allowing them to have the opportunity to send their kids to a childcare facility? Constantly, our employers are talking about the extreme cost of childcare and how that cost is keeping people out of the workforce. So again, we have been working with the state. Heather Mulligan, our CEO, was part of the childcare task force. We're going to continue to work with the legislature on opportunities to create a universal childcare program. That's something that I think is a goal of the Business Council and something that we will actively pursue. We've also been working with the New York State Industries for the Disabled, trying to get more of their members, more of the disabled community, jobs and employment. So we think those things are incredibly important. You know, as I also mentioned, education is a key for us. Educating our members, educating the public is a key. One of the things that, you know, Crystal has taken a lead on is working with our members to work with the state on pathways to technology programs, working with SUNY. SUNY is a Business Council member on micro-credential programs and the community college. Because what we're seeing, obviously, is the governor taking a very aggressive approach along with Senator Schumer and Senator Gillibrand and creating a economy in New York, which grows out of the growth of the chip industry. You do not need a college education, or you do not need a master's degree to work in some of the high-paying jobs within the chip fab industry. So for Micron as a member of ours, and we've been working with the Syracuse schools, and we've been talking to folks, also Global Foundries out of Saratoga, how do we continue to create pathways to technology programs in advanced manufacturing. That becomes a very important issue. Going forward, one of the things that we'll be working on is also creating those opportunities as artificial intelligence continues to grow. We know artificial intelligence is here, it's not going away. We need to figure out how do we train the next generation of young people into artificial intelligence so they can get jobs out of it, so it can create jobs, and it won't necessarily be something that causes a loss of jobs. Finally, again, I know Wish Bristol was here to go deeply into some of these issues, but right now what she's on is what we call the manufacturing bus tour. And again, this is about educating and listening to our members. So her, Heather Mulligan, and some of the other staff are traveling throughout the state, going to different manufacturing facilities to highlight the manufacturing industry in New York State, highlight what some people aren't aware of in terms of our wonderful economy that's based out of the manufacturing industry. They started in Brooklyn. They made their way to Long Island. I think last I checked, they were in Buffalo. I think I saw a picture of them in Buffalo. This year, we did get them a nice bus. The year before, they had one that looked like one of those little school buses, which was a little bit of a problem. But they're traveling throughout the state. And one of the advantages that program does for us is it does allow us to hear the needs of our members. So for example, last year, when we went to visit Borg Warner out of the Ithaca area, we were able to find out that they have some very serious workforce development concerns, which we brought to the Department of Labor. So it allows them to continue discussions with the Department of Labor because they were kind of at a standstill as to how to grow and continue to grow their workforce. We've also been looking to highlight some of our businesses. We recently had a program called The Coolest Thing Made in New York. It was actually a pretty neat idea where we look at businesses and had a competition. We had it like brackets from the NCAA tournament where we had a competition on who made the coolest product in New York State. We got down to the finalists. It was Alcoa and a group called Knight Rider. They do radar vision, and you put it on EMS vehicles, and it will actually see in the dark and allow them to not hit a deer or not run into somebody who's walking into the street. It was very interesting. We had thousands upon thousands of folks that voted on it, and it allowed us to, again, promote our membership. Because additionally, one of the things that we try to do is we try to also promote our members. For example, we have a member who is the only African-American woman in the world, according to Total Wine and More, who actually has her own champagne label. And being able to kind of work with our MWBEs and connect them with some of our members is another important aspect, because as we grow her business, we grow jobs in New York. So Stuyvesant Champagne is now happily a customer of Total Wine and More. So you'll be able to find her in the New York store, I believe in the Virginia store, in some of the other stores, I think in New Jersey. So that is some of the things that we're doing. And I think most importantly, which I kind of will leave with, and I think is our biggest initiative today, we are starting what we call the blueprint for New York. One of the things that we realize there is not enough discussion with different stakeholders within the New York State economy. So what we are doing and what we will be doing over the next 3 to 4 months is having regional meetings throughout the state in which we talk to business associations, various businesses, everybody that we can think of who has a stake in the economy. and talk about what things need to get done to create a stronger economy in New York State. This is something that we are looking to work collaboratively with the governor and the state legislature. It's not something that we're trying to do, hey, look what you guys are not doing. This is something to kind of help the legislature and help the governor to be able to take that information and utilize it to grow jobs, grow the economy. So, you know, when Heather found out that I was pinch hitting for Crystal, one of the things that she asked me to do here is to kind of let you guys know about the blueprint. You all are welcome to be part of that discussion. It is not a discussion where we're looking to exclude anybody from the discussion. It's something that we truly believe will be helpful to New York, will be helpful to our legislators, and will be helpful for the governor. So again, I wish Crystal was here and she can dive in deep with some of this stuff. And but at the same time, I'm glad I'm not on the bus because I didn't really want to. So, I don't know if anybody has any questions. Yes.
First of all, very impressive. If you're running for office, I'd go for it. The issue is that one of the things that was clear to me as you were going on is that the idea that one of the things was that, and I did take this in terms of working with the federal government, is that you would have an incentive working for, I think it was what my company calls people with criminal past. And you said the incentive was that the tax breaks and things like that. In the past, my company has dealt with the breaks and the things that are incentives for employing certain groups of people and that type of thing. The one thing I would say, and it's sort of a question, but maybe more me just saying this is the problems that I've had in the past, is support after that takes place. Because you have to, just like grants, you have to fulfill the grants. You have to fulfill the things you do when those people are being employed. There's still things you have to do. I would wonder if you have things in place to help that employee with that.
I think that's one of the things that we are actively looking at, and part of the reason why, for example, with the clean slate legislation, we're going around and continuing to have conversations and try to find out what people's concerns are, what people's needs are. But yes, that's something that, you know, Crystal, if we end up moving forward with a state version of the workforce tax credit, would be looking at, because you're right, you know, we want people to come into these jobs, but we want them to stay in these jobs. We want to make sure that the employers realize that there's a true incentive for folks to come in and stay in those jobs. It's difficult. You know, we have, you know, for example, with the issues involving formerly incarcerated, we have been working with a local leader in the area who runs Hudson Valley Shuttle. Working with him on some of the things that he's been doing. He's been doing a lot of work in the various state and county jails throughout New York State to help, you know, educate and work with the prisoners on what they can do, the apprentice programs out there, the various jobs that are out there. You know, I know our friends in labor have, you know, programs that kind of reach out to folks like that. And then we're also kind of looking at, and what we're going to kind of do is also work on programs that, you know, after the fact, when folks come out of prison or come out of, you know, various hardships, to help work with them and find ways to help them when they go into an interview, when they put a resume together. Sometimes we here take for granted, you know, that process. You know, if someone told me that I was going for a job interview, I put on a suit, I put on a blazer, you know, I would come with my nice pair of shoes. Some folks never had somebody who gave them advice like that. So that's something that we also are doing. It's a very broad bit of things that we're doing at the Business Council. And sometimes, you know, I worry about our bandwidth. And sometimes I worry about, you know, overworking Crystal, but she's gonna get a raise, thanks to all of you. But, you know, those are the type of things that, to your point, that, you know, we need to do. It's not just, okay, we passed the workers' opportunity tax credit. Oh yeah, we did clean slate. We're done. Because, you know, if we're not careful, then we just end up in the same cycle.
Right. I am so happy to hear you talk about the benefits cliff. That is so important in this regard for 6 months. I'm wearing multiple hats, but I also represent one of the local rehab agencies in the state. And for people with disabilities, the benefits cliff, SNAP and Section 8 are major barriers. So great work that the governor's doing around Medicaid, but the other benefits are really important. And I think it's extremely powerful to have the business council coming out on that issue. So
Yeah.
thank
Well,
you.
I'll just say that, for me, in my tenure there, and, Heather Mulligan, our CEO, and I have known each other 1997, we were 10. So I'll just say that, because Heather will get mad at me if I give out her age, but, Heather has a strong commitment, to diversifying, the workforce. I have a strong commitment, to diversifying the workforce. I think we're being disingenuous as an organization if I, walk into the New York State Legislature and I look a member straight in the face and tell them why, my members need tax cuts, my members need this, my members need that, my members need, whatever. And I'm not doing something that is broadening the economy for everyone. It's not fair. It's not fair to the legislature. So we've really taken an active role in trying to really look at things that diversify the workforce, that give people opportunities that didn't have opportunities before.
I have a question, comment. Heard you talk a little bit about AI. I feel like your organization is very uniquely positioned to help others understand where we could be positioned as a state for quantum. I know there's a lot of talk about Quantum Valley, potentially Hudson Valley Capital Region being the quantum center because of what we have going on here and downstate. And I haven't heard enough yet about building quantum literacy, building a quantum workforce. I think people don't understand it. I'm curious if it's part of your roadmap, because I know it's largely the Fortune 500s that can take advantage of the technology today. So how do we get that out to small businesses and to a workforce? I'm curious.
Absolutely. And, interestingly enough, at our annual conference, one of our roundtable discussions was on AI. And in particular, something that I didn't realize was how much AI is being used by small business. And it is I think small business is outgrowing even larger corporations in their use of AI, and how AI is helping those small businesses maintain a balance sheet that works. But, again, with that, it's something that's not going away. It's something that's here. And I think, what we kind of look at it as our responsibility to do going forward is figuring out how do we train people in AI? How do we give people the next generation of jobs? I was talking to one of the gentlemen who owns an AI company in Saratoga. It's an interesting company. It actually is kind of like a lie detector test for executives, which is kind of scary. So basically, when you give a speech, say you're giving a speech to stockholders, it'll determine whether or not you're lying or not, which is kind of funny. I don't know if some of my business members are okay with that. But when I was talking to him, he was a graduate of RPI, and he said, the interesting part about AI is, when he was in school, you had to know computer language. So you had to go to an RPI, you had to go to MIT, you had to be able to code. He said, but AI, you just actually need to know English, right? It's just typing in words. He said that's the beauty of AI. But if we don't make that understanding and that knowledge available to young people growing up and make them understand that those opportunities exist, then we're going to lose a whole group of people in the workforce. And we also realize that business council, you do have to balance that with jobs, right? Like, how far is too far? Right, and I know that we don't want to see to the point that, it's like that movie I, Robot, and, the whole world is run by robots. But we do realize there is that balance, and we are looking towards some of our larger members. We're already starting out with webinars that we're going to start doing into next year, talking about AI and talking about the availability of jobs out of AI.
Thank you, Paul.
All right, thank you. I'm off to New York to check
Great
it out.
information.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I want to thank both our presenters today for sharing the information, everything their organizations are doing on the workforce, because as we all know, that's one of the reasons why we're here, and it's pretty important to us. So again, thank you very much for that. The last item on our agenda today was one that we want to keep there when there's time permits, and we're really short for time today. But the idea was that we could do a regional roundtable, and that would be, is there any initiatives or concepts or things like that that you might be doing in your home areas, or, you know, a hot topic that we want to bring to the surface. So going forward, we'll leave it on the agenda, but today we're gonna kind of skip it because we're tight on time. But be thinking about that for our January meeting. So is there any just last minute things that we missed today, or anything that you want to add for our January meeting? We do have one thing, we are going to move the time that I think everybody's probably aware of for our January meeting to 1 to 3. So we can give people time to get home, or closer to home, I should say. We can't get all the way back, but so please note that for the January 22nd meeting, it'll be 1 to 3, and it'll be right here in this room. And we will still have the virtual hookup for our folks that want to dial in remotely. And next is, if there's no comments, we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Great. Second? Second. Thank you, everybody. See everybody in January. Have a great couple months.